My wife slept with our accountant, stole $300, $0 of our savings, and now she's suing me for half the property. Even though I just found out she's been cheating on me for years and everything's falling apart. I never thought I'd be the guy to get like this, but here I am. It all started with a gut feeling that something was off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. My wife, Jessica, had always been a bit bitchy, but lately she'd been worse, more dismissive, more secretive. She'd come home late, dodge questions, and suddenly her phone was glued to her hand. I'd catch her deleting messages, hiding her screen when I walked into the room. Little clues, nothing concrete but enough to make me suspicious. Then came the day I found her phone on the coffee table, unlocked. I saw the messages pop up, texts that didn't make sense at first. They weren't just flirtatious, they were downright dirty. The name Mark kept popping up, and I saw references to meeting up, secret nights, and not telling your husband. I froze. My stomach sank. I looked closer and saw the dates over the past 3 years. Jess had been sneaking around with our accountant, Mark. The guy's name was David, but I'd always thought he was trustworthy, a good professional. Turns out he was just another piece of her game. I didn't want to believe it at first. I thought maybe I was overreacting, jumping to conclusions. But then I remembered all the small things, her disappearing acts, the late nights, the odd expenses on our bank statements. She'd been draining our savings, over $300, $0 gone, and I couldn't figure out where it went. Turns out she'd been funneling money to Mark, paying for their secret meetups, who knows what else. I confronted her that night, and her reaction, totally dismissive, as if I was bothering her. She lied so easily, told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that Mark was just a friend, that she was just tired and stressed, and the money. She said she'd been handling some investments, but I knew better. The worst part was how she looked at me, so calm, so bitchy, like I was the crazy one. I felt my blood boil. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this? After everything. I'd given her everything, my trust, my hard-earned savings, my love. And now I found out she was screwing around with our accountant, stealing from us, lying about her entire life. The shock was overwhelming, but beneath it there was a burning rage. I wanted to tear her apart, to make her feel what I was feeling, utter betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment I saw her texts, the way her face looked when I confronted her, the way she lied so effortlessly. It was like I didn't even know her anymore. I started thinking about everything, her lies, her cheating, the money she stole, the fact that she'd been sleeping with Mark for years. How long had this been going on? Did she love him? Did she even love me? All these questions kept swirling, and I felt like I was drowning in a swamp of betrayal. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. All I knew was my world was falling apart, and she was the one tearing it down piece by piece. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't sleep, and every time I looked at her, I saw the lies behind her eyes. Jessica was still acting like everything was normal, smiling, making her snide remarks, acting like I was overreacting. That bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was getting away with something. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd caught her red-handed, and I was done pretending everything was okay. I started digging into her financials more, trying to connect the dots. I got access to her bank accounts, her hidden folders, her emails. That's when I found it, more proof of her deception. There were transfers to Mark's account, large sums that didn't match her story about investments. Over the past 3 years, she transferred close to $250, $0, maybe more. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. She'd been funneling money to him the entire time, probably for their secret sexcapades or whatever else they'd been doing. And then I found the emails, more than I expected. Jessica had been planning to leave me, I think, or at least trying to cover her tracks. She'd been talking about getting out of this marriage and starting fresh with Mark. I felt a punch to the gut. That's when it hit me. She'd been using me, lying to me, stealing from me, and cheating on me for years. It wasn't just a fling. It was a full-blown affair, a betrayal on every level. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I set up a meeting, told her I knew everything. She snapped at me, called me paranoid, accused me of spying, of not trusting her. That's her usual defense: deny, deny, deny. She tried to gaslight me, saying I was crazy and that Mark was just a business colleague, even though her emails painted a different picture. She insisted she loved me, but her actions told a different story. I could see it in her eyes. She didn't love me. She loved herself, her money, and Mark. That confrontation was the worst. Her voice was venomous, full of lies, and her eyes were cold. I was furious, heartbroken, and humiliated all at once. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face for so long? I felt like I was losing my mind. All I wanted was the truth, and instead, I got in. How deep deceit can go. I was starting to realize that everything I thought I knew about her was a lie. She wasn't the woman I married. She was someone else entirely, a manipulative, selfish bitch who had been using me from day one. I remember walking out of that room that night with my head spinning. I had all the evidence I needed to end this nightmare. I felt sick, but at the same time, a strange sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't stay with her anymore, not after she'd betrayed me so thoroughly. The trust was broken beyond repair. I had to think about what was best for me now. I'd always believed in fighting for my marriage, but this was beyond repair. She crossed every line, and I was done being the fool. I needed to figure out my next move, but one thing was clear. My wife was a lying, cheating, money-stealing bitch, and I deserved better. After that confrontation, everything changed. I spent the next couple of days trying to process what I'd uncovered. Part of me wanted to just walk away, forget about her, and move on. But another part, more stubborn, more angry, wanted justice. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. She, stolen from us, lied to my face for years, and now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. I knew I had to fight back, not just for myself, but to make her pay for what she'd done. I started thinking about how to get revenge, how to make her understand she couldn't get away with this. I knew she was planning to sue me for half the property. Her lawyer had already sent some papers, claiming I was trying to deprive her of her rights. But I wasn't just going to sit back and let her take everything. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be betrayed, to be lied to, and to lose everything she cared about: her money, her reputation, her sense of control. So I devised a plan. I knew I had to catch her in the act if I wanted to make her pay. I started by hearing a private investigator. I wanted to know if she was still seeing Mark, if she was planning to leave or do anything else sneaky. It didn't take long. The pie came back with photos. Jessica and Mark had been meeting up at a fancy downtown hotel late at night multiple times. They weren't just friends. They were lovers, plain and simple. Seeing those pictures made my blood boil. I'd been played for a fool, and she was still lying, still sneaking around. I also found out she'd been trying to liquidate some of our assets, maybe to leave town or hide her money. She'd been talking about getting a fresh start somewhere else, another state, maybe even another country, anywhere she could escape the fallout. That's when I realized I needed to act fast. If she was planning to run, I had to stop her. I couldn't let her walk away with everything, especially not after all she'd done. My plan was simple but brutal. I wanted to expose her publicly if I had to, and make her realize she couldn't keep lying and stealing without consequences. I started gathering evidence of her affair, her financial fraud, everything. I dug into her emails, her bank statements, her texts. I wanted to have everything ready when I confronted her again or when I went to the lawyer. I knew she'd try to spin things, lie her way out, but I had proof, so much proof that she couldn't deny it. Meanwhile, I also reached out to her family and some friends, people she thought she could manipulate. I told them what I knew, shown them the evidence. I wanted to make sure she couldn't hide behind her usual lies. I wanted witnesses, backup, anything to show I wasn't making this up. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that I was dealing with a woman who cared about herself more than anyone else. Jessica had become a stranger, and I was starting to see her true face: a manipulative, money-hungry, unfaithful bitch. I felt a mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I finally knew the truth, and dread because I knew this was going to get ugly. She was not going down without a fight, and I had to be prepared for the fallout. I had all the evidence now, enough to blow up her lies and end her game once and for all. The question was, how far was she willing to go? Because I knew she was capable of anything, Lies, manipulation, maybe even more sneaky moves to keep her secrets safe. But I was ready. I'd fight for what was mine, for the truth and for my dignity. I wasn't going to let her ruin me, not without a fight. The day I finally decided to confront her again, I felt like I was walking into a trap. Jessica was still acting like she was the victim, like I was the one who'd lost my mind. She had that same bitchy smirk, the one she used when she thought she was in control. I laid out all the evidence I had gathered, her secret texts with Mark, the bank transfers, her plans to leave town. I made sure she saw everything, every detail, her reaction. She looked surprised at first, then quickly shifted into denial. "You're crazy," she snapped. "All these accusations are just your paranoia. Mark's just a friend and I haven't done anything wrong." She lied so effortlessly, like she believed her own bullshit. She tried to turn it around, saying I was insecure, jealous, that I was imagining things. But I had the proof and I made her face it. I told her she was a thief, a cheater, and a liar. That her lies had finally caught up with her, and she could spin her way out of it this time. She got defensive, started shouting. "You don't know what you're talking about," she yelled. "You're just trying to ruin me because you're insecure. I've been loyal to you, I've done everything for this family. You're the one who's been neglecting me, not paying attention." That was her usual line: blame me, deflect, twist everything around. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money, about her plans to run away with Mark. I said I had enough, that I was done with her lies. That's when she snapped. She threw a fit, calling me all sorts of names: paranoid, jealous, controlling. She said I was crazy for even believing she'd cheat, that I was just insecure because I didn't trust her. She started crying fake tears, trying to manipulate me, but I saw right through it. I was angry, yes, but also numb. How could she be so cold, so ruthless? I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd just thrown it all away for some cheap sex and stolen money. That night, I went to bed feeling like I'd lost everything. My marriage, my trust, my sense of security gone. I kept replaying her words, her lies, her fake tears. I felt crushed, betrayed, humiliated. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to do something to make her pay, to make her understand she wasn't getting away with this. I was starting to realize that this wasn't just about the affair or the money. It was about justice, about making her face the consequences of what she'd done. I decided I needed to get legal advice. I reached out to a lawyer I found online, explained everything: the stolen money, her affair, her plans to leave. I wanted to make sure I was protected. She was already planning to sue me for half the property, but I had my own plans. I was going to fight her, not just with evidence, but with everything I had. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my life, my money, or my dignity. I wanted her to realize she couldn't keep lying, cheating, and stealing without paying the price. The more I thought about it, the more clear it became. I'd been a fool for trusting her so long. But now, I was done being the victim. I was going to fight back. I'd expose her lies, her betrayal, her greed. I knew it wouldn't be easy. Jessica was cunning, manipulative, and she'd do anything to save herself. But I was determined. This was war, and I wasn't going to lose. The legal advice session was eye-opening. My lawyer told me I had a strong case, not just for the financial fraud and betrayal, but also for the emotional damage she caused. We discussed the possibility of a divorce, fighting her for full custody of any kids, and most importantly, making sure she couldn't just walk away with a penny more than she deserved. I showed him all the evidence I'd collected: the emails, bank statements, photos from the pie. He told me I had a good shot at exposing her lies in court, but I'd have to be prepared for her to fight dirty. Meanwhile, Jessica was still acting like everything was fine, like she was the victim. She kept spinning her lies, claiming she was being framed, that I was just jealous of her success, that Mark was just a friend and nothing more. She even started gaslighting friends and family, telling them I'd lost my mind, that I was paranoid. Her fake tears and bitchy attitude were relentless. It was like she thought she could manipulate everyone, like she always did, and somehow escape unscathed. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I was ready to take her down. I also started secretly recording her conversations, just in case she tried to deny anything later. I wanted irrefutable proof of her lies, her plans to leave, her affair with Mark. I knew she was planning something. She'd already started packing some bags, talking about getting out of this mess. I caught her on a few calls, whispering to Mark about meeting up again, about how she was getting everything ready. That was the final straw. I couldn't let her run away with my money or my life. One night I confronted her again, this time with everything on the table. I told her I knew about her plans to leave, about her affair, about her theft. I laid out all the evidence I'd gathered. Her face turned pale for a second, then she snapped. She everything, of course, and accused me of trying to ruin her. She said she loved me, that she'd never cheat, never steal, but I saw through her lies. Her eyes were full of rage and desperation. She knew she'd been caught and she was trying to spin her way out of it. That moment was the turning point. I realized I couldn't keep pretending. I had to make a clean break for my own sanity. I told her she needed to leave the house immediately. I wasn't going to let her stay and manipulate me anymore. I had all the evidence I needed to take her to court, to fight her for everything she'd stolen and lied about. My mind was made up. I was done with her games. I was tired of being the fool, tired of being betrayed by someone I once loved. In the days that followed, I filed for divorce, started the process to recover our stolen money, and prepared to go to court. It was a brutal, exhausting process, but I knew I had to do it. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done. I wanted her to understand that you can't cheat, steal, and lie your way through life without consequences. I was done being the victim. Now I was fighting back, reclaiming what was mine, and finally taking control of my life again. The pain was intense, but I knew in my heart that justice had to be served. The court date finally came, and it was everything I expected: ugly, messy, and emotionally draining. Jessica showed up with her lawyer, trying to spin her lies one last time, but I had all the proof. The emails, the bank statements, the recordings, everything was laid out on the table. The judge listened carefully as I recounted everything: how she betrayed me, stole our savings, and plotted to leave. Jessica's face was a mask of fury and helplessness, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. In the end, the court awarded me full custody of the house, the majority of the assets, and ordered Jessica to pay back every penny she stole. The judge didn't buy her victim act and saw right through her manipulations. I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness as the verdict was read. Justice had been served, but the damage was done. I'd lost years of trust, a marriage I thought was forever, and a sense of security I'll probably never fully regain. Jessica didn't take it well. She screamed, called me every name in the book, and stormed out of the courtroom with her lawyer. I stayed behind, exhausted but finally feeling like I was starting to breathe again. I knew she'd try to come back, try to manipulate her way into my life again, but I was done. No more lies, no more betrayal. I had learned a hard lesson: trust is fragile, and some people are just out for themselves, no matter the cost. In the aftermath, I took time to heal. I cut ties with most of her family, who were shocked but couldn't deny the truth. I focused on rebuilding my life, working on myself, and making sure I wouldn't fall for another Jessica in the future. The money I got back helped stabilize my finances, but the real victory was reclaiming my dignity. I realized I'd been a fool for so long, but now I was finally free. I learned that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, even if it means tearing everything apart first. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also know that I can't change the past. What I can do is move forward, smarter and more cautious. Trust is earned, not given blindly, and relationships require honesty and respect, things Jessica never truly understood. I don't harbor hate or resentment anymore. I just feel relief that I finally took control. I hope anyone else going through something similar learns from my story. Trust your instincts, gather your proof, and never let anyone steal your happiness or your life. Sometimes, the only way to survive is to fight back and reclaim what's yours.